Psychotechnologies live. Woo.
I feel like, yeah, our woo is a bit flat today. Like,
Yeah.
you just said to me, Daniel just said to me he hasn't slept very well.
No, I slept. I slept well. I said Jack didn't sleep well.
Okay. And obviously, when your baby doesn't sleep well, you wear some of that yourself.
Yeah, it's been a long couple days.
Mm.
I'm hearing him screaming now.
Oh, baby things.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, can we do anything to help you? Can we like brighten you up or something? Not that we
Yeah.
like there's an important thing here of you don't always have to feel like you're running on 200% like you are on top of the world. You're allowed to feel bad sometimes and just feel a bit down or feel a bit heavy or
Yeah, like low energy, low effort.
yeah. So there's like step one is make it okay to be low energy, low effort if we want or if we need, you know. We talked about the boring stuff of life like stacking the dishwasher enables your like greater moments of running around doing awesome things and not having to wash the dishes.
Yeah.
So this moment of like downtime could be a moment of enabling the more uptime later.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good. It's a good like attitude. Like I'm kind of like incubating or something.
Right. And people, I definitely incubate. People do incubate.
Yeah. Yeah, incubation is a real thing. Also occurs in nature. Yeah, so you were going to share with me a pick me up, I think.
Right. So option one is to just be cool with it, and option two is like, well, I don't have time to be cool with it. I got shit to do today. We're gonna have to like amp you up. You know, we're live streaming. We gotta amp you up. You know,
live stream Psychotechnologies. Whoa, energy.
Right, but it's got to be real. In fact, there's a couple of people in my life being like, I'm feeling low energy and I'd like more energy. So how do we? So importantly, if we go back 3 or 4 episodes, we were talking about energy, and one thing we mentioned is there's different types of energy.
Yeah.
So to check, do you have a sense of which type of energy you're looking for?
I don't know if I'm looking for energy per se, because it's kind of getting to the end of the day. So there's just like I have this episode, and then we're gonna do what we've been calling Jewish Valentines.
Oh,
because yesterday was Valentine's Day, so today's the day after Valentine's. That means all the chocolate's going on sale.
So I was gonna make a slightly racist joke, but I'm just gonna leave it implied there the day after Valentine's.
Yeah, yeah.
Admittedly, I also like I did a similar like take out food the day after Valentine's because Valentine's is always busy, and if people really want to do it on that day, they can. And but it's a good reminder to do something, and I just don't have to do it on exactly the day that convention.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like I guess maybe like a married Valentine's Day where you do it after because chocolate's on sale. So we're gonna do. We were gonna do it earlier, but
right, you got to do it after. I know people who do Christmas like a month later.
Yeah.
There's also like Eastern Orthodox that actually does have a different date, I think, for Christmas.
Right.
Don't quote me on that. I swear to God, I'm probably wrong. But
they have different holidays.
Yeah, that has a different day of Christmas.
I had an Armenian friend, and they did random stuff. Similarly to me, I mean, like Christianity itself is kind of random. So then having or I guess Catholicism press is kind of random for me, just as a Jew. And then they did the Orthodox stuff, which was
there is actually a Jewish Valentine's Day or a Jewish.
Is that true?
There's an obscure festival. I had never heard of it. I went through an entire schooling, like 12 years of school Jewish education, give or take a couple of complex, but and then I got to university and I bumped into the Chabad proselytizing on campus because there's this belief in the Chabad sect that you should spread and you should re-invite Jews back into the religion who may have like dropped off. And so they try and hang around places where they will find Jews, like on university campuses. and encourage them to practice more and do more. And they alerted me to the fact that there is something of a matchmaking day, or it's like a spring
Tuba of.
tuba of, that's the one, which stands for the two being the night.
Two is Tesvav, which is Tetvav, which is 15. So it's the 15th of Av.
Which is the Av is being the Hebrew month around March, April, May, I think it is. It moves around because it's the lunar calendar, but it's on the 15th.
Oh yeah, because there was a whole thing. Yeah, okay, so there was, this is like a thing. So the big one I think is the tribe of Benjamin almost got wiped out at one point. So there's 12 or 13 tribes of Israel. And
wait, is there 12 or 13?
Okay, so there's 12, but what the 12 are, like there's two versions of it. So there's 112 and then another 12 where one is different.
Great. I'm so glad that we remembered both of those details.
Yeah, because what happens is there's 12 tribes of Israel, but one of the tribes is the Levium, or the Levitites in English, I guess.
Levites?
Levithim? I don't know, but they're like the
Leviathans.
Leviathans are real. They're the priest class, so they kind of are integrated within the tribes, and they don't like inherit. They don't have like claims like kind of like the rest of the tribes do. So they're kind of dispersed throughout, and they do like the temple stuff and things like that. So they're kind of missing from a lot of from some of the stuff when we say the 12 tribes. And then so what happens is Menashe, Joseph, the tribe of Joseph, it has Joseph had two kids, and so he's the eldest of Rachel, which was the favorite wife, and so he gets two portions. So his tribe is split into Ephraim and Manasseh, which because in Judaism the firstborn gets double portion of inheritance, but the tribe of Reuben lost their inheritance because they tried to kill Joseph, I think, or they were like in charge of that stuff. It's a whole thing. There's a whole story there.
It sounds like there's a whole story there.
Yeah. So there's 12. There's 12 tribes, but there are 13 total, but only 12.
Okay.
Ancient, that's what happens when you have like ancient tribal stuff. Everything gets really complex really quickly.
Yeah, I'm sure that. Well, it's interesting that tribal structure. I don't see it as like lasting over hundreds of years, but somehow they tried to implement it at first, and then obviously we have lost some of the tribes and blah blah blah. But they sure did try in the beginning, and I wonder if it did stick for a couple of hundred years.
Yeah, so like there's stories of this, like of sticking and like they integrate and like integrating, but the like Jews have sort of been like we're all like Israel is from the idea of Bnei Yisrael, which is the tribe, the sons of Israel, which is Jacob after he got his name changed when he beat up an angel.
Yes. That's the way. If you battle heaven, you better win.
Yeah, but you get injured. Right? So he got kicked in the sciatic nerve.
Kicked in one letter or something.
Huh?
He got kicked in a letter and shortened his name.
No, he got kneed in the sciatic nerve.
Oof.
I think it was kneed or something. He got struck in the sciatic nerve, and now Jews won't eat the sciatic nerve.
Ooh.
So in modern day, what they do is Jews just don't eat the bottom half of cows.
There's a tradition. So I worked in the kosher keeping of animals at one point. Now, people in Israel still do, but in other places in the world, it is not the tradition. And to restart a tradition would be quite difficult, and basically we just don't do it. So in Australia, we don't. In Israel, they do a bit, but you have to cut out the sciatic nerve. They will eat further back of the cow, but you need to cut out the sciatic nerve.
Yeah.
But in Australia, we do not.
Yeah, most
Sydney and
of
Melbourne.
Yeah, Israel, I think, yeah, sometimes they do. But whatever, you have to, like, the rule is you take it out, and then depends on how lazy people are.
Mhm.
But because here, like, the bottom half of the cow can just be sold as a cow, so it's not.
Oh yeah, of course. There's other people who are more than willing to eat the rump steak.
Yeah,
It's the prized after part of the animal.
yeah, it's a whole half a cow. It's good stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah, so getting back to the thing, so there's all the different tribes. So the tribe of Benjamin, I think there was a whole story of that where they weren't allowed to intermarry to the rest of Israel because they did something wrong. I can't remember what it was. And then there was one day where they were allowed to marry
Oh, to
into.
meet, or to mingle, and to marry.
Yeah.
Ah,
So
okay.
they did that on Tu B'Av, and that's
That has become like a biblical Valentine's Day according to this religion.
yeah, it's like kind of like a Valentine's Day, but it's
So
not
in
really
my
what it's
primary
supposed to be.
school days, I had never heard of this such a thing, and then I wonder if they just didn't tell little kids because little kids don't really need to know about Valentine's Day, um, or the equivalent. And then when I got to university, I don't know. Like I think maybe the Chabad sect enjoys this one more and wanted to make it more of a like festive.
Yeah,
Like we
it's
had
like Jews have a lot of holidays, and a lot of them
yeah.
are major ones where there's like all these
There's
rituals
a
and
handful of minor ones. Like there's one called Lag BaOmer, which includes a bonfire.
Homer is pretty. Yeah, it's a
But
minor
it's a
one. Like,
minor. It's a minor. It's not formal. It's not like a non-working day compared to some of the other ones.
yeah.
But that one I had heard about, and this one I had not, and so it was very confusing having someone who is distinctly rabbi-like formally explaining to you. It's like someone imagine you're Christian and you know of Easter and Christmas, and then someone comes up to you and is like, "What about Easter too? We always do Easter. This is our tradition." And you were
Easter
like,
too, when the rabbit came back from the dead.
right. And you were like, well, I guess I'll participate in the religious ceremony of Easter too, but I sure am confused about it.
Wait, so
And
did you do? I've actually never done this holiday before.
it's it was more just a conversation. Like we talk about the like they were, they sat and they chatted and they explained the day and like it's about matchmaking or meeting people or something like, or it's like a Valentine's sort of thing. Anyway, I was like, all right, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. It's like a hippie, like some of like the more hippie places will celebrate
Yeah.
this.
Like, imagine if you had never heard of like Halloween or Juf de los Muertos. Like there are these days in which different cultures celebrate. And then you were like, oh, okay, I guess there's except that it was my culture. And someone said, my culture also has this new one. And I'm like,
Yeah,
anyway, I got over it.
yeah. But I mean, the Chabad, they do. They actually have a book because like almost every holiday, every day is a holiday in Chabad. Just because like there's all these different things that were going on, like famous rabbis were born or they died.
Well, like if you imagine collecting several hundred years of history and being obviously a culture that wrote things down and scholarly, after several hundred years, you do have something for every day of the year.
Yeah, and there's certain prayers you don't say on a holiday. So so Chabad, they do this so you don't have to say them ever. It's pretty funny.
So there's this fascinating concept that Judaism has like a very rigid, lawful attitude to life, existence, reality. Like there's the Talmud that has most of it is sort of legal cases through the old Sanhedrin, the old legal structure of like 5 judges, and people bring cases before the judges and
different courts have
different courts. But there was this, but the what remains of those law structured books is now studied as the way in which we do things, sort of. And in that way, the whole of like there's the main Bible text, the Torah, and then there's these extra books that sort of add to the canon of how we do things. And so the whole religion is, particularly the scholarly side, is very lawful, very, very willing to expound and converse around what is or what isn't and what is the rules.
Yeah.
Which becomes which then starts coming out in other directions. So Daniel just described that there's a rule that there's certain things you don't have to say on a holiday, and Chabad has done this thing where they created something like a holiday every day of the year, and so you never have to say those things.
Yeah.
And so there's often
it's not never, but it's very infrequent. Yeah.
I would call it like a munchkining around the rules. Like if
Yeah,
the rule says
choose-
never, and then it's a holiday, and then like therefore we
Yeah.
never have to. And so there's like a finding of the winding path through the rules to do the things that you wanted to do.
It's actually like part of the religion though. It's like munchkin it.
Yeah.
Because that's like part of the spirit. And
right.
And like we have like the old, like the heroes are all like munchkining this stuff as well, like finding these technicalities and
right
stuff. But it's like you know you're doing it like within the spirit where there are some things like you can't like where it's there are actually rules, like there are some things where you shouldn't.
They're all rules though. They're all rules. You just can't. But you know the other rules also allow you to occasionally have exceptions around those first rules, specifically in certain circumstances, which are now the rules, as long as you follow all the rules, right? It's interesting. I want to sort of like look at this from a spiral dynamics lens, where for those of you who don't know spiral dynamics, bad luck. I'm not going to explain it. It's worth looking up. It's kind of
Google it. It's a good chart.
Google it. There's in fact, I have another video about it that maybe I will link to.
We should do one on spiral dynamics. We'll go through.
Yes. But there's a level. The levels are color coded for easy talking about. They go beige, purple, red, blue, orange, green, and that's like the main set. And then there's a couple more that come higher up. And there's a level in the middle that is the blue level, which is the lawful level, and like the structured and organized and the I think of it as like blue collar workers. The ideal of the blue collar is to go to work, do your job, and live a happy life. Just as long as you follow the rules, you'll be a good citizen and you'll get rewarded for your efforts in doing so. And that level in spiral dynamics. So spiral dynamics is a level system of meaning making. And so the idea is that as we grow up, we make meaning in different ways, and then we get all of our meaning gets mixed up. And but you can sort of on aggregate see the progression of people through different levels of meaning making. And so there's this lawful level in the middle, and the one before it is the blue one, and then the one before it is red. And red has a more selfish meaning making, like me first, I'm important, I'm the ruler of my tribe.
Okay.
Bit more aggressive, bit more like physical power. Like red can do things with physical power, whereas blue recognizes that physical power doesn't really scale. And we instead design systems of laws to keep reality fair, as opposed to might makes right.
Yeah, I have a bit of a different view on this.
All right, hit me with yours.
Yeah, so so for me it's a lot like this stuff is like communicating, like it's definitely different levels, and you're communicating what, like even in Judaism we have different levels of things that are going on, and like we have our own language of like what is what. Like there's like the Mishnah and the Gemara, and like those things are on different levels, and being on different levels, they have different implications of relationships and implications of what they are. And like in the non-Jewish world, they don't, it's like we don't have that as much. And so like in we don't have that in like a philosophical moral sense or something, or like way you would describe the world. And so for me, the spiral dynamics like takes that and just like, okay, these are different levels of reality. And so there's so you got like, let's say like on the beige, you start with beige, and that's just survival, right? Like whatever's going on, survival is like imminent survival is very alive for everyone. Like that's a thing. You're like, oh, I can't do this because there's a cliff and I'm gonna fall off. Like, like that's sort of like a basic level. It's very not abstract, and it's very straightforward. And then you get like magenta, which is like sort of like the exploration level of like, what is this, and spirits and things like that, where it's like kind of like vague and basic stuff, but you're starting to open up to things that aren't just like pure survival, right? Like horoscopes or whatever, right? Like or whatever, or like interest, like you have interests in things.
I kind
And
of
then,
put so definitely I use the word purple for the second level, which is, it depends on whose interpretation.
purple, yeah.
These theories sort of mush into multiple people's opinions. I'm just gonna pop up a little bit of spiral dynamics so that
let's take our time and go through this. Let's do that now.
Here is some spiral dynamics.
Okay, I like the first one all the way on the top left.
Okay.
That I think it just does like a really good. This is just like a really good explanation of a basic explanation of what these things are,
right?
What they're referring to. I mean,
right. I deliberately go for Google Images and go for whichever one comes up because reality is sort of sculpted out of our opinions. So whoever has made these infographics has decided this is the best way to describe it. That's probably a pretty good way to describe it.
Yeah.
Obviously,
and then,
you can see a great number of them.
The complicated ones are actually really cool as well.
They look like gibberish from the outset, but then when you spend enough time with them, they start breaking down into making sense.
Yeah, they become actually really simple, and it's just multi-dimensional. I mean, this is how the representation is.
Right. So this looks like
that one. Like I like that snaky one.
Yeah. So this particular picture that we've clicked on is integral theory. Lovely Mr. Ken Wilber liked spiral dynamics and acquired from spiral dynamics a bunch of the general structure and then recolored it a little bit and like slightly differently described it. So you'll see there's an amber here and there's an orange, whereas if we look at this one over here, which is spiral dynamics, you have the beige, purple, red, blue, orange, green, which is what I said before. There's this like authenticity fight about whose color coding system is the most useful. For anyone who's used to it, you get like you can just switch back and forth. So over here also is the teal and turquoise, whereas in spiral you get the yellow and blue. The yellow and the turquoise. And obviously, there is some politics around the naming and the blah, blah, blah. But the general structure is roughly that there are different sort of big buckets of meaning making. Yeah, I'm gonna stop for a bit. Big buckets of the way we make meaning about where we're at or what's going on. So if you're living a survival like life, like you're out in the woods and you're just barely scraping by, you don't even have time for myth. You got to survive first before you develop your myth. And then hopefully if you work out campfires and caves, you start having spare time and making myth and making superstition about what helps you catch the animals, what helps you stay alive. Lightning really does seem like a big angry man in the sky.
So that's like earlier cultures and stuff. Like if you can take this lens and you can look at anything, and so like there is like deciding what you want to look at, right?
Well, there's so you can do two things. One is early culture, and the other is and obviously our culture is maturing until the proposal is most of us are bluish orange, and we're getting 10 to 15% of green. Which is green happens to pattern match to the environmental, like why we must care for more people, and then very few of societies in those upper two sort of systems and global.
The way I like to look at it is sort of like within our society or within like people's development. So I kind of just like narrow it down to.
So there's the historical, like over the history of society.
I'll like grab from these places, but it's. Yes, so I'll grab from these places, but it's more like I like to just like for now like limit the scope to
Mm,
us in our everyday life.
right. So there's a proposal that reality is fractal and overlapping. So you can take a single person's life and go from like baby survival to like magical thinking. Did you ever think you had the power to change the traffic lights? Like I just need to
I
think
didn't think
about it.
that, but I could test it.
Yeah, right. So you even have the like scientific lens, like right? I'll test that on
Yeah.
the like
Or like for me, the big one was Star Wars, like using the Force. Like, is it working?
ah
So like I
nice.
try to move objects with my mind, and I can't. So
Right.
like aside from like doing it through my hands or telling some.
Yeah. But there's a like, let's test out that theory. You know, sometimes you do get like magically lucky and you're unsure as to whether you caused it or whether it was a coincidence. And so you have to
Yeah.
test it. You have to check. Let me try to do that again and see if I can repeat the trick.
Yeah, it's important to test these things.
Mhm. Right. So
Yeah.
there's
Like
a
a
way of
big one
thinking
is
though, that
yeah,
that we're not sure and we might believe it's magic if we can do it magically every time. A big
yeah.
one is
Yeah, so a big one is like for psychology, this kind of magical thinking, a bunch of it happens to just be true. So like for some people, it's like if for them realizing that they could ask that like they could ask for their needs to be met and then they get their needs met. That's like some people they'll grow up in a place where that's not possible and then they get
you're
to
not allowed to ask, you're not allowed to expect.
yeah. And
Yeah.
then that just like to them that's magic.
The other one I like to use as an example is raindrops on a window. And obviously rain will hit a window and various drops will like grow big enough and then fall down. And there was a time in my life where I tried to work out if I could pick which, like if I could make certain raindrops fall more than others or something like that.
Yeah.
Like I could pick
Yeah, a big one is like I guess this is like very magenta that we're going into. So this is like the random chaos of the world is like can you influence it with just your attitude or your mind or intention?
right. Now there is natural laws, like the rules of the jungle, right? Bigger things eat smaller things, stuff like that. But obviously it's more complicated. Plants and animals are in this dynamic. No one messes with the humans.
Yeah. And I think this is like it's that transition where your intentions do matter and like what you're generally your attitudes and your intentions they do matter, but they matter in certain ways and not in other ways. So like you can't wish gravity away. But if you have a certain like attitude at work or in your life or in your relationship, like that's going to affect the
yeah, absolutely
that situation. And so you need like yeah, I think like this magenta is like figuring out I guess what realms these things matter in or what places they do, what places they don't, how it works. So you're like kind of starting with that. And then the way I see it is as like you have an attitude towards like once you kind of get like like an attitude or a way of doing things and you get then you find people that are like that and that becomes your tribe.
Right.
And then your tribe like a group of people we believe like just on a very basic level like we're capitalism, we believe in hard work and effort and providing value, or we're communists, we believe in working together and communally, or whatever, or like this sports team is the best because they work the hardest, they have the best coaches, they that, and now this sports team is the greatest sports team ever and we're the best tribe. Or we're a tribe, like we're from the city and we have we're Boston and we talk like Bostonians, and so now we have these things in common and we get together, we band together, and this is who we are, and if you're not from Boston you don't get it. And that doesn't mean that they're dicks. I mean, some Bostonians are dicks, some aren't. It's like all people. And so like that's sort of your tribe level, and yeah. Wait, are we going through this? Are we going through the whole chart now, or are we just?
I don't mind which way you want to. Like so you can look at a single person and the ages of. You can look at the general age category, like baby to like little kid to teenager to like adult to like different stages of adult life even.
Yeah. So
So
I'd
you
like to
can look
see
at
it.
like so you can look for a single person and ask like, where is Daniel at on sort of like, if we try and map out which
Yeah. So where
main
it's at, I think
sentences.
is like, where is your focus? It's not like,
Mm.
like I think people do this like, oh, where you're at is like, then you don't understand anything higher, you don't understand anything lower. And it's a very, like, it's a very, very
Right.
thick
So
way of,
so the way I would describe this is there's a gravity. So people tend to gravity in certain
yeah, I think all these things,
buckets.
there tends to be a gravity, there tends to be, what are you looking for? What is it that you want?
Right.
Like, we're all multi-dimensional human beings.
So at the same time as a gravity, I would say that there is a gravity also is like a habit, right? I like hanging out with the hippie people or the entrepreneurs. And so there's a way of thinking when you're an entrepreneur of like, how do I win this? Or and that's very different to the way of thinking of like,
Well, it depends. Like, even entrepreneur has different levels, right?
right.
Like some entrepreneurs are like, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm part of this community, I'm part of these people, like this is where we're at. And then, or even below, it's like, oh, I'm starting to see the world, like I'm starting to see this dimension of the world that you could provide value from putting things together in certain ways, instead of just like a pure, like instead of like getting a job or doing a craft, you could, okay, if you do this and you do this and you do this and you all come together, then we're going to get this thing that's worth more than the sum of its parts.
Mhm.
And like, that's a very, like, just when you start to see that, that's a very magenta level. And then when you're trying to like organize, or you're being with other people that are like that, that becomes much more tribal and more red.
Yes. So there's like the generic people around this age will care about these things, and obviously a specific person may be in and out of that bucket, and you can plot approximately where people are going to be. And then there is the more specific, like for this one person, I think they're over here, and therefore if I appeal to their desire to make money, they will, whereas this person over to the left, they care about people, and if I appeal to their desire to uh, make meaningful impact on people, they're going
Right.
to go with me. And so as a business leader, I need to be able to like switch codes or switch ways of
Switch
being so
languages,
that
like,
I can navigate both worlds.
yeah, so like code switching, or mimetic mediation, I think is how our
Yeah.
circles said, to code switch.
Hmm.
And yeah, and you want to be providing the people of, like, you want to see where they are, what their world is like, so that you can, let's say as an entrepreneur, you can provide value in the form that they're able to see it, and the things that they actually want, and also not rely on them for things that they're not interested in, or are not able to, that they haven't seen yet.
Hmm.
Right. So if you're gonna like someone who's just starting out and starting to see the magic of things, which is, I think, like very magenta, like, or purple, I guess, you start to see the magic of the world. And like a wonder or awe would be the non-magic way of saying it. And yeah, like this person is starting their journey, they're interested in things, versus like switching to, okay, like I've seen how the world works and I need to actually like get my shit done, which is like a very different attitude.
Right. The switch from purple to red, sort of. Back up again.
Yeah, purple to red would be more like, yeah, like getting shit done. Right. Organization in such a way that,
yeah, I would go for
people can see.
In purple, you're maybe
make the picture big.
Let's see if I can.
Whichever picture you want to use. Oh, I figured out a trick. If you right click on the image, you can do open image in a new tab.
But you don't always get the highest resolution if you do that. Oh no, you do. Looks like it's loading.
Yeah, sometimes you have to follow it through.
So purple being like,
yeah, this is like,
fortunately the words are a little bit small. Oh, there we go. It does zoom in. Purple being, you've sort of just discovered the power of nature, and you are getting the hang of the fact that the nature has really strong forces, and then shifting into, oh, but I still got to get shit done. Like I want things and I want to go get them, despite the fact that I live in a world with great and powerful forces. And so there's a shift from like external power to internal power. Like, oh, now it's my job to get on with it, get a move on.
Yeah.
And of course, for anyone traveling through a life journey, they may miss a level, or they may hold back on or avoid a level, or
Well, yeah, there's
get
also
triggered by a level.
there's also the horizontal development, right? So like the magic nature of the world, nobody knows what all the nature of the world, right? Like you don't know every subject.
Right. And that stays there, even if your focus shifts away from that will stay there, and you can always tune back in. And
yeah, so that's the thing. It's like, yeah, it's like rediscovering your youth is a lot of things when you're moving back down to a lower level.
I'd say people get kind of rusty. Like adults don't really enjoy a magic show the same way kids do. But that doesn't mean that they can't tune in and remember what it's like to believe in magic and go along with and enjoy the way that it is. I always like the like science magic shows that had a little bit of like science as well as magic. Like you mix two chemicals and then they like something happens and you're like, wow, that wasn't like a sleight of hand. That was a real thing that was kind of interesting and exciting.
Yeah, yeah. I had a couple cool ideas because there is some science that just looks like magic. But it's no, it actually just is like a weird quirk of like this is how science works.
Right, like the way that light bends through a prism, like, oh, and you look at it.
Yeah, the other one, yeah, so the two of them I was thinking was, if you drop a magnet through like copper piping,
it goes slowly.
It will go slow. Because it will use that energy to create electricity.
Right.
And
create induction fields, and then it like the induction field creates a magnetic repulsion, and then it sort of moves slowly.
Yeah, it uses that energy, so that magnet will actually go slower than not magnet. So you have two tubes, two identical pieces that go through. One tube will go through slower than the other. So I feel like there's a magic trick there where the trick is where you do like a whole show around like this thing about how you're doing magic, and then you're like, no, I actually just didn't lie to you. This is actually just how it works.
Yeah, and I like the I as a kid always liked the explanation of the trick after.
Yeah.
Like, and there's a way to do it in a funny way where like the magician makes a fool of himself by demonstrating this is how the trick is done.
Yeah.
Or
those are my favorite. Yeah.
Or you know, they take the cover off and you can see the way the trick is done and you're like, that makes sense. And also
yeah, those are the ones I remember. The tricks where they don't explain it to you, I don't remember.
Was it you that was saying, someone was saying to me that Penn and Teller, no, that's right, my house was talking about it, my housemates, Penn and Teller don't like leaving the audience with the question of whether they like did real magic or whether they did sleight of hand or like some cool trick, right? They would rather they leave the audience knowing that they did a trick, whereas Darren Brown does mentalism, and the audience doesn't really know if he's got like magical powers or something.
And Darren Brown's explanations are always bullshit.
Right. So
Penn and Teller just often don't give explanations.
But it's a different style of showmanship, you know.
Yeah.
And I kind of have a preference for, as much as Darren Brown is incredible and fascinating what he does, I have a preference for Penn and Teller, who are showmen and will do a cool thing and then either not explain or explain a little bit or explain with another trick or something.
Yeah. Yeah, and they have a whole thing where they'll never do anything that's actually dangerous.
Yes.
They say nothing more dangerous than building the set.
Interesting. Right, and that's a cultural choice that they've gone for in the way they do
they'll
it.
do the acts, like there was this act where Teller died. But it was a pretty funny one. It was Penn was trying to do a trick, and then if he does the trick, then Teller gets out, but then he wasn't able to do it, so Teller just died, and they're like, fuck it. It was pretty funny. But yeah, so that's like the magic of like, right. So like what magic tries to do, I think, is to attract you to this level, and then like the magic we like where they explain it, like that lets you actually move to the next level. And
Right.
the thing about the magic, and then they don't explain it, that really bothers me, is like they're just saying magic exists, and then they're not, like, it's not really useful.
Well, it can be scary. Like it can be, what if the magic man comes to my house tomorrow, like for a 3-year-old? What if the magic man comes to my house tomorrow night and makes me disappear?
Yeah. Okay.
Like it's sort of a boogie monster, and from an adult perspective, you're like, oh yeah, all right.
Yeah.
But from a kid's perspective, you might need reasoning to help you through that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that is interesting, like in the sense that when the magician, they set up the thing in a way, like, you're falling into a trap. And so there's something about like signaling this is how traps are made. And so like in that sense, it's helpful.
Yes. And generally there will be moments in your life where there will be traps coming and you may have to avoid them. And so being able to see them coming and know that they're magic. Like we've taken I guess what could have been a mythical religion, and we've turned it into magicians doing shows in front of little kids.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good to have taken it, what was kind of probably a demon at one point, and normalize it into entertainment.
Yeah. And it does also do that thing where you're able to sit with the fact that you don't know how that people can trick you.
Right. Which becomes super important, because if you can never deceive, then you will never deceive at all. You will also have problems.
Yeah. If you
can't never deal with deceptive, you'll have problems.
Yeah. If you can't engage with that world, you're not going to make it very far in life.
Right. So should we move a level?
Yeah, I'm more open to magic now. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it still bugs me. Yeah. But that's what it's designed to do as well.
Yeah. So levels, and I did call them levels. They're probably better described as buckets. They do seem to have a progression, but when you try and describe something as a level, you imply that one is better or one is superior in some way. What a better way to think about it is maybe that as we move to the next level, we change in complexity. And so it's, if I were to be like, is a 20-year-old better than a 5-year-old?
It's a sapling better than the acorn.
You can't really answer that question. Like, I would rather be 20 than 5, but it depends on what metric. Like maybe 5-year-olds are lighter, and so that's beneficial because they are lighter, they're shorter.
Well, whatever it is,
small spaces.
It's a cycle, right? And so to say like that one part of the cycle is better than the other is to miss the point that you're going to go through all of it.
So there is, at the same time, as one way of sort of stacking the levels, it is important to recognize that as there's moments in the stacking level, like in your experience of reality, where you want to reject certain ones of these levels. You want to be like, I'm not stupid like the 3-year-old. I'm not going to fall for magic tricks, and you will reject it. And there's probably something in you that needs to go back there and move to a position where Daniel just moved to. Maybe I can appreciate magic shows.
Yes, yeah. So I think just to like double click on that a little bit, there is an idea of differentiating. So when you're on one level and you're trying to move to the next level, you like, commonly what people will do is they'll say like, this level is dumb, right? Like, so toddlers will be like, oh, I'm not a baby, right? Like, babies are bad.
I am not a baby. Well, parents also do that to their kids. Are you a baby? Stop crying.
Yeah, because they want to differentiate. They're trying to get the behavior to change from baby to toddler.
Right. And there is a way to, like, I would say there's a way to get your kid to stop crying without doing the don't be a baby.
Yeah, without insulting babies. Yeah.
Right. Because if they have a younger sibling who is a baby, you have forever made them go like, younger people are better than me.
You've created this barrier that shouldn't exactly exist.
Right.
It is funny because like my kid is a baby, kind of. He's very beginning turning into a toddler. But we make the joke he was bitten by a radioactive toddler. So now he wasn't really, but
that's great. And then then he'll become a toddler.
Yeah,
transforming into a toddler. Then he'll be I like the idea of being bitten by a radioactive teenager, and then you turn into yourself a
You
radioactive
start growing
teenager.
hair and like, yeah, all this weird stuff happens. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like, I've been bitten by a radioactive 30-year-old.
It's less
Even
aesthetic.
yeah, just the whole idea of transformation by transmutation, like, bitten by the wolf or the vampire or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So we do a
Is
little myth in our house.
there's some interesting stuff in terms of symbolism of various mythologies like vampires um and werewolves.
Oh yeah,
And
that's what we left the other one. We talked about vampires and stuff. Yeah.
we will have to save symbolic thinking and Jungian stuff for another, because we're in the middle of the spiral and I'd like to keep going.
Yeah, or we could just be, this is the episode where we jump around and just talk
Oh
about
my god, so much jumping around. Let's go. Keep going for the next level.
Okay. Yeah, so you get the differentiation. They tend to like each level tends to what's it called, like have like differentiate themselves from the one below it. So
Right.
when people are just doing their day-to-day life, like the classic is like the single mother who works 23 hours a day and doesn't have time for anything, right? Like they get stuck in this way of living where they can't expand past where they are now. And so people that are starting to expand past their day-to-day, like whatever's going on, and they start to see the wonder of the world or start to wonder what else is out there. First they're in this space and they wonder and they're curious, and you can get like a little bit of like, oh, don't do that because we're in this system, and you can't just start, like, you start energy, like you look up at the stars and wonder where they came from, like how does that put food on the table? And so there's a lot of this, like whatever level you're at tries to sort of keep you there and doesn't want you to explore past where you're at.
This is inter-level dynamic. So sometimes levels hate other levels. Often the one prior, no one is as stupid as I was yesterday. Look how smart I am now.
Yeah.
And then obviously sometimes we don't like the lower down levels either. If you were to call someone, so if you were at the red level and you were to call someone the savages, you might be talking about the people at the beige level. So all the way at the survival.
Yeah.
You might call them the savages who don't have the like magical mythic or the strength that we have. They're
savages or barbarians or heathens.
Yeah.
And then you might start to see that not all of them are like that. Not all of them are like that. Some of them do wonder about what's out there.
Yeah.
And trying to
they also have their own complexity within them. Whereas if
you
take the blue level and you look back
at
the red, you'd probably call them savages as well.
Yeah. Well, like, yeah, that would be like tribal, right? Yeah.
Unlike us civilized.
Everyone 2 levels below you is a savage. Or everyone that you think is.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I think so. 2 levels below, and you're like, well, and there's another interesting phenomena here of anyone below you may be a savage, but anyone too far above you is crazy. Like,
yeah,
they're just like, what the heck are they doing? Why are they doing that? What even ticks them off? Why are they like that?
Yeah, like they look insane.
Yeah, if they're a few levels above.
Yeah, so you get so like then red is like so you get wonder about the world, and then you become like, you kind of fall into one of the traps of something. So you're like, oh, what's important about the world is this, and this is what we should be doing, and this is like the journey, this is the things we're doing, and you get these tribe, like groups of people start to show up, and they start to coalesce around different parts of reality, essentially. And then that comes into, I think, and then that turns into amber or spiral dynamics blue, which is, well, they're calling it like ethno or national centric, but it's like values, roles, and discipline, right?
I would describe this transition slightly differently, which is that if you win, like the level, each next level grows out of winning the level that you're on. So if you win the level you're on, when you're on red, you are the king of your tribe, right? And you have risen to the top of the world, and you command the community. And then what happens is that someone grows up and kicks you off your post, and then themselves takes the high seat of the top of the pyramid.
Yeah, I don't think that's true exactly. I think red is real, like you move up a level when you realize other people are doing the same thing in different ways.
So there's sort of two options. One option is uh or in thinking of the red level, two options. One is be the big man, and two is to find the biggest man and associate with him. Right. And then you can form.
Again, I don't think that's necessarily the way, because you could easily just find the biggest guy and then win your tribe, and now you just win, and there's no need for moving up.
Right. But
I think it's when you realize that there are different tribes in the same space, and you need to come up with like systems or roles or ways of keeping people so that they get along with each other.
right. So this is what I would say is that red doesn't scale. And suddenly you have a big tribe, and then someone keeps knocking you off. And then they're sitting
Again, I don't think that's true. If you look at let's say China is a perfect example. There's like the CCP is like a tribe, like they were like these warlords, and
but they keep knocking off they've destroyed any structure that is larger than like a small family to prevent challenges.
Well, they create the bureaucracies and stuff, and that's a whole system. But they won that war. Not to knock Taiwan or anything, but they did win. Essentially, they did pragmatically win China. Like they control China.
They're in control, yes.
And
win, but
like,
not necessarily that we think that that's good or bad. But they did win.
And no judgments. It's just this is how things are going. This is how things are. And so then they're there, but they're like there's one party, right? And like party is the tribe, and then from that they then create like the legalistic state, let's say, and then that would be like amber, and I think they've inverted it, which is a problem.
Right. So I would say that you want to expand from red into lawfulness so that you can have the natural good.
Yeah.
In any case, depends how you. It doesn't really matter how you describe it.
Essentially, I think like rule of law is.
But you need the rule of law to scale, to have the whole of society getting along with each other.
Yeah, and you want to have those multiple tribes to be able to live in peace. Right. So like you don't get you like this will minimize intertribal warfare, is having like rule of law. So this is like empire, right?
Well, it's also the Christian religion is very much be a good person, do the right thing, be lawful.
Yeah.
So
Christian, I think it does tend to scale like in different. Like
and it is complicated. There is instances of Christianity like further down in the, the blood and the wine and bread is the blood and body of Christ, being way more mythic. Like if you were trying to take that literally, that's kind of weird. But okay, that maybe appeals to someone. And then if you climb up to the more of the green level, there is a Christianity of the like care for everyone, no matter what religion they're from.
Yeah, I think religion tends to create their own sort of
hierarchy,
their own sort of like cycle, like I guess like hierarchy of development, where they're like
hierarchy ladder. Yes, and then
like so Christianity, Judaism, Islam, or
it seems like Christianity also appealed. Christianity as a religion appealed to a world that was valuing order or wanted more order. So there was lots of tribes, there was lots of fighting. You would murder people in the streets sometimes if you didn't like them. If you go back 500 years, you don't like someone, you kill them. But and then there's the virtue.
That's not true. That's not true though. 2000 years ago when Jesus was around, the Romans were in charge of the area, and they had something like a rule of law, and so like when Jesus is coming, like he's like re-paradigming everything,
right?
Which is much higher on the.
He was doing a little bit of orange disrupting, and caring for all the people, no matter who they are.
Well, he's on multiple levels. I do think like Jesus, Buddha, they do exist across multiple levels,
right?
And they'll affect things like he'll have things where like he's Jesus and he's whatever, is he the king of Israel? Is he this? I am what you say I am. What does that mean? And like that's a very like purple level, but he is also like he does talk about like like this, I guess like he's trying to do like this new tribe or like this new way of being. which is red, and then he does like new value, and then like redoing the values, which is the blue, and he does have like a different way of thinking, which is orange. And like he does exist on higher, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, like for me, like the religion isn't a good example, because they do tend, like if you take the religion on a whole, it does transcend this way of thinking. And in that it provides, like it will provide answers to all these different levels.
Right.
And so yeah, so then you get like values, rules, like ways of doing, and that's like kind of like rule of law, like, or this is how we operate, this is like standard operating procedure, this is how people are supposed to act, these are, you're this, like in India they have like the different caste systems. So like the caste system would be like, you're this caste, so this is your job, like this is what you do, and everyone needs to accept their place in life. Yeah, and then once you do that, then you can start to think about these things, like how should these systems be set up, what is true, what isn't true, right? Like once you're able to transcend, you're so far removed from survival that you can sit and do science, right? Like you don't have to worry about people attacking you, you don't have to worry about like being like being attacked for your beliefs or who you are, or you have food on the table, you have like all these lower needs are met, you can actually sit and try to figure out what's going on in the universe. So you can sit and wonder. You're no longer wondering about, I mean, you are kind of wondering about the sky, but you got a telescope and you're looking out there and you're looking at the stars and you're seeing.
And start building technology to help you.
Yeah, and that's like, yeah, that rationality science, right? So that's.
Would you put that in orange territory?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, you can, like they say capitalistic democracies, right? And I think this is exactly true. Like capitalism is, it only works if people can take risks. And so like every business you start, more or less, most businesses, it's a risk. And you need that risk isn't going to kill you.
Well, I think there's a blue capitalism as well. Like all you need to do is find out what people want and give it to them and charge a small fee. And there's like, you have a good service.
That takes time though. Right. That usually takes time, and that usually takes resources.
Right. So if I'm like, oh, this town doesn't have a baker, I'm going to be a baker now. I'm going to make bread, and then people will become.
Right. That's like a very basic level. Like, oh, I'll bake. People, you're seeing that like the baker died and you're taking over, right? So like in that sense, you're a capitalist, but it's very like, that's almost like mercantilism, right? Where it's like very, very low level.
It's sort of an earlier capitalism, which still works great and should be integrated in with some of the more startup-y style ventures.
It generally is, right? Like it's like just find the need, like just find the needs, like that's what they say, like start talking to customers and just this is like a big one where they start talking to customers, fill their need, and then the infrastructure that you use to build your product, like you're going to start building infrastructure. That's what your startup is actually, which is a very like step removed.
Right. So startup style is pretend to be Facebook and then start building your backend.
There's a lot of different ways of doing that.
I have an example. There was a service called Magic, right? And you would say something, you would be able to, you open the chat box and you say, hey, Magic, I'd like to deliver a fish to my friend. The person would be like, okay, what's the address? What time would you like it there? I can do that for $150. And, this person has called a fish shop nearby and has sort of brokered the deal and worked out that they can get someone from the fish shop to put the fish in a bag and drop it off on the doorstep and all the rest. And you, as the consumer, just got to magically deal with a terminal that told you the thing, with the idea of a future possibility of them automating some of those steps, but
we're finding out one thing people are constantly asking.
Right. But version 1 is you just talk to a human at the other end who solves your problem for you in various ways.
So that's sort of like just broad stroking, seeing what the world is like. That is a way of exploring the world,
right? With the startup being the like building the back end of that product. And I don't know what
or the startup being once you see what's going on,
right?
Once you see the system works, then you can you can do that. But that again, that only really like that would be like kind of like, I guess olden days you just have, I think like monks and stuff would probably do this in the olden days, where it's just, they're sort of this like generalist.
Oh, interesting.
Like,
So
oh, you have this
approach
like big need and you don't know what it is or how to get
approach a
it.
generalist with your problem and let them guide you to the next steps.
Yeah.
Yep, fair enough.
But it is like very inefficient on like a lower level on it. And I think like for lower, like it takes a lot of, like it's very inefficient at the beginning versus just being an apprentice baker where you're like, okay, well, people are going to need bread.
I just make bread and I keep making bread and then people keep buying it and then like, yep.
Yeah. And I think a lot of this, like this stuff does take an infusion of capital and support and et cetera. And that's why you get like a lot of the earlier stuff is like courts, like king courts or like royal courts would promote this stuff or sponsor this stuff, like patrons, or like religious institutions would do this, where they were able to like anyone that's like able to essentially accumulate land, sorry, capital, like land or capital, like anyone that's able to get capital, which in the olden days, like early medieval times would be landowners, and then as the mercantile class started getting more and more wealthy, they were able to sponsor this stuff on their own. Then you get the Renaissance kind of stuff. And nowadays it's really cool because it's really like where does like wealth like can you get sponsored by something, like it's just all over the place, right? Like so they're starting to coalesce in like VCs, let's say, or angel investors or things like that, but it's really, there's just so much of that stuff out there, even though it doesn't feel like it, but it's relatively, there's a lot of capital to be invested in.
Right. So how do you describe the transition from orange to green?
Sorry?
How do you describe the transition from orange to green?
Yeah, so orange to green would be like, so it starts with like this is the system, like you build a system and then you realize there's actually tons of other systems that could be done in multiple ways. Like, so different countries.
No. Systems are all the way up at yellow. I wouldn't get to systems yet.
No.
The color coding is different, remember? You're using integral codes.
Yeah, so you're saying orange to green.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're in a capitalistic democracy, then you have systems. Like every company has its own system. And when you start realizing that different systems work in different places, like sometimes people go, this is the way business should be done. And they build it and they're like, this is how a business needs to run. That's very orange if they do it well. But then saying, oh, actually different businesses run different ways, right? Like, so you can get like different orange people argue with each other. No, this is what the values need to be. This is the way things need to run. Maybe I'm the boss and I do this, but my employees are allowed to do these things. That like when you got this like rigidity of the system, that's orange. But when you realize like different systems work differently, you're green. That's a transition to green.
That's interesting because I have this differently, and now I'm wondering. I've wondered about my transitions because some of them seem a bit clunky. But one idea I have is that as a level system of meaning making, right? You shift meaning for. Why would you shift meaning? One reason is that the meaning making you're making that you're using isn't working anymore. And another is that the meaning making that you are using, there's space for more meaning. So if you go down to the beige level, you suddenly have more time to start making myth and to start telling stories. And so you end up shifting your meaning making to the purple. And then you are stuck with at the behest of nature, and you're like, screw this, I want something better. And so you shift to that personal internal power meaning making. And then again, you get to the top of red, or you've been there for a while and you're like, oh, this doesn't scale. And you have to shift to blue, the lawfulness, in order to scale. And then blue, the rules get.
What do you mean scale? How are you
As
using?
in the like you can only build a society of so many humans before they start like all out war with the tribe next door. In order to get beyond that, you need a lawfulness
Well,
and
you
an
can only have
inherent
so many tribes before. Like if you have two tribes, they can just have treaties and stuff.
right. But if
You
you
know,
have
three
17,
tribes.
right,
Once you get three tribes, it's much harder because if two of the tribes, like you need systems of how we're going to deal with each other, because
right,
the second two tribes make a treaty, the third tribe is screwed.
right. So you need some sort of lawfulness that is more universal than just tribal relationship.
Right.
And the lawfulness becomes something that can scale. Like everyone in this country follows these laws.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
like the way things work. Like China is very has very if I'm not mistaken, which I don't not super into, but they have very like strong blue or amber, right? So they have like Confucianism is very like values and like they have the legal systems and they have like a very strong tradition of that. And so even though let's say like during like pre the communist revolution or like that area, like World War II, pre-World War II, when they were all these different like tribes fighting each other, they're still fighting within China. So there's still this sense of
I would put China at like red/blue,
yeah,
particularly, and
I would more too, yeah. And
particularly
that's not the people, it's like the government or the way things are run. Like
right.
you can
Right,
definitely
right.
have scientists.
Again, it's not individuals, it's sort of like a very broad brush stroke. And then of course, if people do disruption, they get executed for going against the government. And so no one can really join that disruption level because they get in trouble or they have such
Yeah.
strict, harsh regulation. And then they can't, so they don't have a good orange level because they keep killing it and keep cutting
The,
off the
the
branch.
orange level is a little bit like mandate of heaven, I think. Where people have to figure out like, does the government have the mandate of heaven still or not? And if they don't, then that's time for revolution.
Right. So then the green level as well, social democracies, like they keep cutting off those ones as well, which means for China to have a revolution, its citizens would have to leap from blue past this like radical phase shift here, which I will talk about as I call that postmodernism. Other things put postmodernism here in green, but I actually think there's an invisible tier here into like yellow or turquoise. Like people will need to leap up 2 or 3 levels in order to change the system that they're in, right? The government is fairly
I don't know that that's true. Again, because like they're in like let's say the CCP is the party in charge. So like they're the ones in charge of China. That's just
right.
very like it's not a monarchy exactly, but it is a political party. And they do have like values and systems and like the legalism, like how things work. And to a certain extent, they are like that is a bigger system than them. And to a certain extent that they do create that.
I don't know.
But yeah, for them to move into democracy,
Or to
the truth
something
is
else.
they don't have to necessarily even jump because they could just find like technically they can just revolt and put someone else in charge. And then they'll have a revolution. And then those people might, if those people start to like get influence, their values start to reflect more of the West, then the people will start to have the freedom to be able to like become the kind of population in which a democracy would work.
I would say that the way they run things at the moment is not going to be sustainable.
Definitely
And,
not.
like
Yeah.
there's been
It
many
will lose the mandate of heaven. The question is when.
there has been many attempts to overthrow the shape of the current ruling party of China, right? There have been protests, there have been the Tiananmen Square, like there's been a few instances of people trying to rise up and change the way things are. And so far, China has stayed in power, but it's only a matter of time before another, CCP has stayed in power of China, but it's only a matter of time before something else rocks the boat enough and changes the system. Because people do
Well,
want
because it's getting fragile. I think it's getting more fragile as they're going through because there are more like disenfranchised youth and their system, like their quality of life has been increasing throughout CCP's rule, but like it's going to like especially now like they're going to hit a bubble real soon, right? Sorry, the bubble is already starting to burst in the housing market, and that means a lot of people are losing their savings,
Right.
and housing is becoming a whole issue.
Right.
And so
So
like that's, maybe they'll get through this crisis, maybe they won't, right? I don't know.
so let's talk about orange. So you said green is systems, which is interesting. Because
Well, so everything is systems, right? But it's
well, you don't see the systems until you're up at the yellow one. From my reading of
so the amber or the blue, I don't think this is true exactly.
wait,
The amber or
let
the
me take a
blue
few
is
steps back. So I said that blue, we sort of had agreement on blue is the lawfulness that scales, and you can have lawfulness across the population. But there's something that happens if there's too many laws, which is that the way forward is to disrupt some of them and to take some of them away again. So things like Uber is a very disruptive business. They came in and took the cake of the taxi industry because people were struggling under this and annoyed at how expensive taxis were. So then they could make Ubers.
Uber per se is a different system. Like it's like we could use the taxi system or we can use the Uber system, and the Uber system is just way better.
Interesting. Well,
and
I've heard
that being said, the
getting
people
worse.
that created it aren't. I'm not saying those people are an orange, but I think that system is itself an orange.
So I've heard stories very recently of Uber getting worse and worse and fees going up like very fast. But more specifically, the interesting thing I find about Uber is that they moved into many jurisdictions around the world and they said, we exist now. And then they fought the legal battle of like their right to exist afterwards.
Yeah.
Which is they disrupted first and then they like went back to the blue level and got expensive lawyers and argued it. And sometimes they won and sometimes they lost.
So so I wouldn't see them as going back to the blue level. I see them as creating a system, and then
they had to argue it out. First they came in and then they had to argue it out in the legal state.
Yeah. So they just didn't see, I guess, legality as that
as a boundary. Yeah, as the mandate of heaven. Right.
Yeah.
Which means the laws are not the mandate of heaven.
Yeah.
And even the idea of the mandate of heaven is a phrase that I would put all the way back in purple, right? Mandate of. It's not the shape of reality.
No. So yeah, if you think the mandate of heaven is reality, then you're magenta. But the mandate of heaven, at least the way I think it is, the mandate of heaven is green. It's saying there there are systems, like there are ways of doing things, and this isn't or maybe orange, whatever. But there are systems, there are ways of doing things, and this is not the one. Right? It's very they're very like cogs in the machine, or like insects following the will of the emperor, let's say. But now they don't do that. They do following the will of the Communist Party. And you do that until you realize that the Communist Party is not the only possible party that could happen. And then you make choices, and then you choose to not do that. Or they get their shit together, and then they follow them. Right? You could have like micro revolutions where within the party, or they bend instead of breaking, or like there's a lot of ways that they can go about doing this. It doesn't have to be a breaking and then a violent revolution. It could be an expansion, or they could start like they could be giving up more and more power as well, and like doing a slow transition into democracy. Like they've been doing like a slow transition, like they've been doing a transition into capitalism. They could do a transition into democracy as well. It doesn't have to be a violent revolution.
Yes. So I would say that talking about blue lawfulness, orange disruption, the transition from orange to green, and I like I said, I say this kind of differently to you. At the end of disruption, at the end of like harsh capitalism, you probably have a bunch of money. And you're like, I win. I have the $50 to $100 million in today's money, which may be like just add a couple zeros onto a nice amount of money. And like, yeah, I got a bunch of it. And then you get to this moment when you're like, what was all this for?
Yeah.
Why did I gather all this money? And if you don't already know, you might have to do some soul searching and dig into your being and wonder why did you want all this money anyway?
Yeah.
And eventually you probably come down to, oh, it's because I care about the people around me and my family and my friends, and doing good for the people. And suddenly your meaning making has shifted. Some people don't do this all at once. Some people
Well,
do this
some
like
people go down a level, but
some people
you go
absolutely
down.
flip.
Yeah.
Like from capitalism to like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I'm harming the planet. And all I care about is people and what people think. And you'll see people like top out of capitalism and then like go on a like
Soul
super grainy soul searching, right?
Yeah.
We
should
go back
run those
to
things. We should run those things because we do a good job of it.
well, we drop back, we go from the green and we drop back into purple, right? We get the like mythic hippie thing going on. And then
yeah, but they're doing it in a new way. So they're rebuilding a newer, more robust, more inclusive system.
right.
And so this is definitely a thing that happens. People do drop levels in order to
climb back up again.
In order to create the pyramid. And
right.
that's
and important to say that these levels sort of can appear moment to moment, day to day, month to month, year to year. Like in each moment, what do I find meaningful in describing it? Well, in this moment, I'm like, oh, I really want to get the structure and transition out. So I'm hanging out at blue here in this moment to really get clear the structure. And I keep disagreeing with Daniel, so I shift into the disruption and like, but at the end of the day, I want to explain it for the both of us to agree. So I'm like dropping into green. Like there's these levels are sort of layered over the top of each other in the way that I'm acting. And hopefully, if I have good introspective skills, I am being present to all of those levels at once, and in doing so in a healthy way, right? I'm not telling Daniel he's wrong and he doesn't know how the system is, and then I'm not disrupting him and interrupting him all the time, and then I'm not like,
you're not actually my opponent. You're just.
I've never said the phrase "your opinion is entirely valid, but you're very wrong," which would be like something in Toxic Green.
Oh, you think that?
No, I don't actually think that, but that would be the
toxic. No, I meant, but you think that this phrase is toxic?
Complicated. We haven't got to green. Let's talk about green.
Yeah.
So what's what's the green meaning making level?
So green is like post rationality, like post rats.
Whoa, no, that is not what I would put there at all. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's really dig into this one. So what I would put at green. Let me go there. What I would put at green, because I would put post rats like a couple of steps later. What I would put at green. Let me nuance, and then like we can either post rat will fit back in, or I'll be wrong and we'll like it'll fit right here, and I'll be surprised. So what I would put here is environmentalism, caring about the people, caring about the planet, caring about fairness a lot. Like we all have to get along, caring about other people's opinions and perspectives. Yeah, right. See, we've got different spirals that we're playing with.
Yeah, like all those things, like depending on your attitude, but I think most of the time those things are lower levels. They're people that have gone to orange and then they're real like they got stuck, so they go down to the lower places to rebuild that foundation. And I think that is.
I might have to make you read a Spiral Dynamics, like the original books, because this is the problem with a beautiful theory, right? A bunch of people have read it and then like reinterpreted it and published. This is the spiral. I read the first guy's books, like when I was going through Spiral Dynamics, there was not much content available about it, so I had to go straight to the source. So Claire Graves, Don Beck being the one who's written the main two books about it, and then a bunch of people have followed him. So I went to him for his opinion, and I went, seems like it fits, and went on my way. I think you grabbed a couple of YouTube people who sort of summarize.
Yeah, I've done very little actual like research like on where this is coming from, and much more of a like I use this just all the time.
Like you just feel it. All right. Well, that's what I would put at green. All right, and I'm gonna do this quick, and I'm gonna so just after green, there's the void of between first tier and second tier, where you go, oh shit, none of these meaning making structures that I've used is really it. They're like green is not better than orange, is not better than blue. And there's this great confusion of postmodernism that I would put landing in the gap between first and second tier. And I would say there's a need to really put another level in there and say, there's a gap. There's something here that is deconstruction, that is postmodernism, that lands in the gap, that is like
Yeah,
a
I
stepping
can
stone
see
that we
that.
have to go through, but when we're in, it feels very confusing and very stressful.
Yeah,
And then having pulled apart the previous levels and the previous ways we have made meaning, and suddenly when we can see the systems, we're at yellow. So at blue, we can operate within the order of the law, but it takes until we're at yellow before we can make the order of law and really make a legal system like we could initiate and systematize and operate on.
yeah,
So I would put post-rationality sort of after green, in that like maybe late green, where we can start operating multiple levels because we can see the way that other people work, the blue people, the orange people, the red people. And then what we want as well is we want to make the best of all of them, right? We want to get the strengths of
yeah.
red,
You're
strengths of
you're
purple,
generally
strengths
through
of
the
blue.
system. You're wanting to maximize goodness throughout. That's what keeps
Right.
you maximize goodness, minimize badness, and that's what keeps you aligned.
Right. But then post
Rather than
rationality
being-
extends onwards, right? If you put rationality in orange, you could put post rationality, I guess green. Maybe it is green. But then it keeps going, right? It keeps like
well, because
as you start seeing
like
the
we're
systems.
post rats, but we're not really post rats. We're like post like we're past that. But
Right.
we do
And
each
there was a
level
beautiful
needs to
stepping
kind of
stone.
include.
I feel like, in the same way that I'm still a rationalist, I'm still a post rationalist. Like, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not my bread and butter, my everyday, but I still stand on it.
Yeah, and I'm still a rationalist, and I'm still wrong sometimes. Like I don't even know that I'm the best rationalist, right? Like there are people at this level, and that
I'm gonna
that
get you
will
to like
affect.
repeat the last 20 seconds because your audio just cut out.
Oh, like yeah, I'm still a rationalist, but I still lose. Like I still update. Like I still have discussions, rational discussions with people, and they make a rational argument, and I update, and I'm like, oh, I'm wrong. But I do notice a lot of the times people get into rational discussions, and they'll shift the objective that we're talking about, and so I'm able to catch that a lot quicker. I'm like, oh, you just switch topics, or they'll start talking about things. I'm like, this isn't important. Like this other thing is important to talk. And I'm not saying that they're wrong, that they're right or wrong. I'm just sidestepping it and saying it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like whatever you're saying just doesn't matter right now. It's not relevant to what's going on. And that would be like a post rat. I guess meta modern rat or something. I don't know.
I would say that getting into yellow, and you can suddenly start systems. It's like you can swim in other people's water. Like you can see the way that they are, which meaning level they're at, and you can just switch code into their language very, very easily.
Well, the truth is, each level, I think you should be able to go 2 levels down and engage.
You might even be able to go to your prior level, depending on
Prior
how
levels,
violently you left the previous level.
Prior level is hard because you're getting caught by traps that you can't see. And so it's very difficult to engage with people 1 level below you. But it could be really valuable.
But sometimes people like to engage with where they just were and invite people forwards. Like
yeah.
I can see that you are in the blue lawful. Can you see how the lawful is sort of limiting us, and we need to disrupt a little bit to get to innovate, right? And I can invite someone from the level below into the next level.
But usually like you'll be able to see that they're wrong, but you don't know why they're wrong, or you're not able to show it if it's 1 level below.
Yeah, it sort of depends on how you made your own transition.
Yeah, like you can somewhat, like if you've done a good job at that level, but like very often like there'll be a system, and if you have like the rationalist, like there's a system and they know the system is wrong, but they don't know why, and they can't explain it 100%. And so it becomes very difficult. Like they can catch people, like what they'll often do is they'll just revert back to the lower level and just be really good at that level.
Oh, well, this is when threatened, when put under pressure, we revert back to our prior safest level. And so if that is like you're taking baby steps into a new level and someone's like why are you caring about that? You will possibly fall back into
Yeah,
high
you
level.
have to have your story ready to justify it.
Or as
When
you
really
step
it's
into
not
a new
true.
level, if you have a bad outcome, right? If you try and innovate but your company rejects you, then then you may fall back and you may even go lower again. You may like fall back
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, if you accept people and invite them and encourage them, then they will grow up a level and you'll get the like more mature level of them.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it'll
Well,
be like testing the waters and new stuff, and they'll make mistakes, but you will be able to get the more cutting edge side of them.
yeah. 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 There's a lot of like, yeah, it takes a lot of safety, a lot of extra resources to get people to the next level.
Mhm.
But I want to get back to the other one, to the rat post rat.
Right. Okay. So where is post rationality? Great
Oh,
question.
and then the environmentalism and stuff. The environmentalism, I would probably like to begin like the leaders or the people at the beginning may have been like the people that started it were like green, but like if you've taught like this, the fucking straw thing it's the straw that broke this back, where the banning of the plastic straws is not even rational. And so you like the environmentalists are green is bullshit. Like they're not. Like
Well,
the fact that they made such a big deal about this, and I don't mean all environmentalists, right? Like there are
So-
some, like they're all over the place. It's a whole industry.
so if I go back 20 years and I see the budding environmentalism movement, there was like eco paper, like environmentally more energy efficient.
Yeah, like recycle. Like the first people to come up with recycling may have been green,
Uh,
but
no, recycling like rubbish builds up, and so it's worth recycling it. But like even from an economic capitalistic perspective, it's worth recycling things because rubbish waste is a problem. Waste and wastage is
whatever. Okay, this is nuanced
But
at this point, right? Like
you know,
because
so
like
if I look at the
the
eco
copper,
movement,
you're
like,
obviously going to recycle and yeah.
well, if you want to go all the way back down to natural systems, right? The rainforest doesn't have waste; it just has resources that other systems use. So the tree falls down, and then composts, and then other things grow out of it.
Yeah.
So that's very much moving down to purple, beige survival of like life cycle.
Well, it depends what you're looking at, right? If you're looking at the system itself and that it's a perfect, let's say, quote unquote, perfectly balanced system that reuses everything. So that would be, I mean, like that could be like just a really, really, really good like blue or amber.
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
but
fair enough.
but it's like evolution in nature. So the complexity, it's as complex as you can handle.
So I remember so energy efficient windows, so they're more insulating and so they let less heat in, and so you need less air conditioning. Gray water, so water from your washing machine that can then water your grass. Things like lights, that sensor lights, so that the lights switch off if there's no one around. Like these are eco-friendly innovations that sort of came out of what I saw as an environmental push. And there's others, of course. You know, the encouragement to have bicycling and bike lanes in places as opposed to driving everywhere.
Though all those things you're saying, those are all amber stuff.
Oh,
Like bicycle lanes is just, it's like you're just like the values or the rules or whatever, the way it is it's just a new way of doing things. Like it's a very amber change, and they'll usually justify it by saying, on a rational level, by saying, yeah, if you have the bikes, that lowers the cost of gas and lets people move and blah, blah, like all the reasons for it would be
exercise,
fine.
healthy, like
Yeah.
Interestingly, none of these levels are explicitly about health innovation, other than maybe like survival. Like health
Survival's not about innovation.
You're right. Yeah.
You can't survive. You can't innovate when you're on.
But health in my like model of spiral, health is just kind of in the blind spot for so long. Like we're busy doing everything else and neglecting personal health.
Who's ignoring health?
Society.
Society does not ignore
You don't
health.
need to be healthy to live in a to follow the law. You don't need to be healthy to be
These are different systems.
Hmm?
These are different systems.
You don't need to be healthy to have mythology. You don't need to be healthy to initiate disruption. You don't need to be healthy to care about other people. Although it starts coming in there because you have to care about yourself at some point.
Yeah, well, health is a dimension. So that's the thing, is like the dimension can exist. Like some people will be really into health and like they're a gym bro and that's their tribe, right? And then maybe they're the rationalist ones are like, okay, like this is like
macros.
Like this is the way to do it because this is what the science says and this is how it is. You got to do this, you got to do that, and these things because this is how we're like. You could have a really rational gym bro who's like they have their systems and how things work and they have their people and like you're a gym bro if you go to the gym this amount of times a week, right? And like the journey starts when you're like wanting to have a better body and or like that's the true gym bro journey, right? Like on this magenta level, right? Or whatever, I'm just making this up, but like just because somebody is into health doesn't like they could be on any of these levels. Like it's not
right. I hear what you're saying, and you're right. There's bits of aspects of health in many levels, and I'm still holding on to a piece of like, oh, it's almost like there needs to be a level somewhere here where health becomes a greater lens. Like, why do you do anything? Your meaning making can be beyond. I don't even know where I'd put it. I put it above green somewhere, but I don't know how I'd rank it with the other ones.
because
health
that's
focus.
bullshit. There are people that are healthier that are irrational and people that are
as in the like if I take the construct of the mandate of heaven and I pipe it through the idea of health, and I'm like, oh, we need a healthy planet, we need a healthy society, we need a healthy people, we need a healthy
like, people you can mix into like
right. But if I can take the mandate of heaven and put it through this thing, then I should be able to put a whole new level in, I think. I'm not sure. If I can pipe the mandate of heaven through health as a pure value, a pure level of meaning making, it should almost be.
You mean health, like health as in the health of systems, the health of people, the health of your cats, the like.
Right, and so I'm taking health from the physical to the subtle to the very subtle as I go from my physical health, my like society's health, my culture's health, the planet's health. Like I'm moving into like more and more vague structures of what I mean by health. But health value, if it can transcend the levels, then it's
a quality. I'm purposely not letting the conversation go into like, let's say, teal or above.
Yeah, we don't need to. Teal is very hard to describe.
Yeah,
I don't want to.
We haven't
be there.
Sorted this yet.
Right.
So I'm purposely. So I'm kind of like there's a part of me that wants to move into that space and say health is part of here, but I'm gonna cut that part off.
I think it goes there a little bit, but I'm not all of health, right? Because everyone who's trying to be health conscious is not up there.
Yeah. So I'm cutting that part off. So given that we're not going there, health exists across all these levels, right? Like even like a on a beige is like health. Like, am I sick? Am I not? Am I alive? Like am I sick? Am I gonna die?
Right, but there's a big nuance between. So in beige, all that matters is survival and procreating, right? But there's a big nuance between surviving in a healthy way and surviving in an unhealthy way, like living a shorter lifespan and dropping dead.
Right. So, but those are levels of health, right? Like not.
Well, it's nuance within the survival, right? There's given our society today, so many people survive that maybe wouldn't have survived 200 years ago, wouldn't have survived childbirth, wouldn't have survived early childhood, wouldn't have survived social, wouldn't have survived. Like we're almost bringing in a bunch of pathologies because we've forgotten about health. Like because we as a society help our sick along and help our unwell people to flourish anyway, because we are
society. Every level does that.
Yes, but so I have a different question. You think that health is a quality within all the levels? Can you name some other things that take that category, like are a quality across many levels?
Like good and evil, like good and bad.
So I would put good and bad as a mythic structure, which then beyond that, like
well, it exists on a mythic structure, but it also exists on a tribal, right? So like our tribe is good, their tribe is bad.
Yes. All
It
right.
also
Well,
exists
okay, maybe.
on amber values, right? These values, people who value are the values that I have are good, and people who value the values I don't have are bad.
Okay, good and bad as a structure. Can you name another one? Like mapping.
Let's say future, like future orientation.
As in like optimism towards the future, or like pessimism towards the future as different future orientations, or
Yeah,
like
well,
how much
you have
attention?
healthy, unhealthy. You have like the future, like let's say worrying about or making the future better.
That's an
So
interesting. The future as a structure is a good idea. Like, how much do you think about the future? I think when you're in survival, you barely think about the future at all. Whereas somewhere along the way, you start planning for a wonderful future for your many generations.
yeah,
Which probably
beige
higher
is how
up
you
you go.
yeah, the future is how you make is one of the ways you make space. So if you're in survival, one of the things that you're one of the ways to like move out of that is to like do things that will let you have more resources in the future.
Right.
And so when you have like as soon as you get that future, then you can then once you get to the future, you have a little bit more space to do the wondering and the exploration and figuring out what's going on and how things work.
Okay, I like future as a structure.
You're gonna make me find them all.
Well, I'm like, well, health is kind of unique in the way it is there. Although, haven't once you said good and evil, I was like, oh, maybe I'm using health as a mythical structure. Like I'm seeing health as something that is mythological, this magical thing called health, and so that's why I'm like spreading it across all the other levels.
Ah, interesting.
Right.
Interesting. So like your health journey, you're kind of in the magenta space.
Well, this sort of implies that there's a need for me to cut deeper into what do I mean by health and break it down and get like there's some delusion in my mind that I am treating health like a mythological structure. And so there's a possibility for me to cut into that. What do I really mean by health? And what does it mean to be healthy? And then if I can cut it deeper, then I can more likely get it, as opposed to treating it like there's this magical health thing, we'll just never know. Or, maybe some of the more rational, there's a magical health thing and here's what the science says, but it's not that I can know, it's that the science knows and then the science tells me. And these are different ways to interact with this structure of health. But I've dug all the way into this, dug my way like back into purple, right? So if the science says certain things like pollution's bad.
No, but yeah, you're doing a horizontal growth sort of thing.
Well, I would call it growing back down, cleaning up. But there's some way in which I've left health back at the purple level, and I need to dig deeper into linking health to survival, and then I'll be like, oh, health means survival and flourishing, and therefore I need to do certain things in order to really excel at the health all the way back up again.
Sure. You want to do this?
Well, I'm sort of. I was going to take it offline, and I'm sort of doing it on the spot as I talk about it. But yeah, sure. I'm happy to do this on the spot. What else?
So we'll go through like an actual example of moving up the chart. So you're starting to like just to like lay the groundwork. You're starting to like see health as this like interesting new thing that you're wanting to explore, and it seems important and things like that.
Well, here's how I would describe your
journey through
in like journeying generally up the meaning making spiral. I rushed, I didn't perfectly perfect survival. Like clearly I'm gonna die one day given our current health system. We can't keep people alive forever, so I had to just like rush ahead to various other things. I got to purple and I had to rush ahead to red. I had to skip a bunch of stuff.
I'm wondering if you're justifying the fact that you're exploring this now.
What do you mean by justifying?
Because like you're in this place of exploring. Like for me, I'm looking at you in this place of moving to the health, and it's seeming like you're justifying that you're only on magenta health right now at this point in your life, and like you're
So
giving us an
no,
explanation.
so I would say that I rushed my way up, and I left a whole bunch of stuff behind. Health isn't the only thing I left behind,
Yeah, you left a bunch of things behind. Yeah, so
but
I
I
definitely
like
say,
left it there, and now having made sense of some of the higher stuff, the greens, the yellows, the like. I'm not going to comment on turquoise again, but like I can see systems quite well. I can see the way things interact. I get like a real cool visualizations of like this is the way the system locks together. Like I have these moments of visual insights into systems, and then in order to grow up more, I need to actually grow back down into the lower levels. Sorry, I keep looking over there and I haven't clicked. So here I am. I see some systems, but not everything is systems. Some days I'm like really systemy, and other days I'm like caught in other crap in the middle, like lawfulness or something. And so there's a need for me to grow back down, clean up the things that are like anchoring me back there, so that I can be more fluid all the way through.
okay, so let's go back
And
down.
so in this case, I think I've gone all the way back down, and I've worked health all the way back down. Like there's the health of green. You need to be healthy enough to enjoy the company
Oh, I don't
of
do it
people.
this way.
And then
Oh,
going
I
down,
see what
like,
you're saying. Okay, I just got what you're saying. So you're taking like that you have this view and you're sort of like superimposing it down through the generations.
right. And well, I have to
I
go
don't
all the
do
way
that.
back to
I
get
don't
to the
do that.
bottom, and then like climb it all the way back up healthy.
Yeah, I don't. You get stuck in a loop that way. I don't do that. I just say I don't know what health is, and I'm interested, and that's
Right.
where I start my journey. Because I don't think you don't need to
Fair
justify
enough.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
if you're
admittedly,
interested
let's
in
try that.
something, you're allowed to explore that.
I don't
And
know
those
what
are
health
the
is.
rules.
Now what? Guide me, Daniel. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Okay. So okay, fine. Let's see how good at this I am. Your interest in health. Tell me about that. What's that like? What's coming up for you like, where's your interest pointing?
I remember like high school sport. PDHP was the acronym for the subject, personal health development, the sport one, where they were like, they gave us this structure. There are 5 types of health. There's physical, mental, social, spiritual, and I think sexual was the 5th one. And this was the lens. But I looked at that. I remember getting that going, what do you mean there are 5 types of health? I've never heard of health. And obviously my questions at the
Stop,
time
you're
were not
moving
asked.
into systems again.
I know,
In
but well,
stay
this
in
is
your
what,
interest. Stay in your aliveness.
right. So that's what came up, a memory of this, like the 5 types of health thing from high school, when I'm like, what is health? And so you're right. I do want to dig deeper into like, ask me the question again. What was the question?
What's tell me about your interest, or share the interesting
What is
part,
my
like,
interest in health?
or what's magical about it, what feels good, like what's alive, what feels good, what's salient, what's
Well, I don't know what health is.
okay. So you're curious to know what it is.
Yeah, I'm curious. I just, I live in the world. I kind of have some sense of what people say health is, but I'm like, what is it, the root of health?
Uh-huh. That's a good question. Let's sit with this.
Like I know the gym bros, and
Let's
I
try
know
to
the
figure
like
this out.
vitamins, and I know the like
I have a theory on health.
fitness. I know fitness people. Like I have all this. Like,
Yeah.
I know what that looks like, but I need to like. I would like to see more of what is at the root of what health is.
Yeah, I have a theory on this, and I'll propose an answer without it necessarily you having to accept
Sure.
it.
What do you propose?
So there's like health is how much variance a system can handle, or how much variance it can put out, or how much influence it could have on the surrounding. So if we take, like, let's say you, so you as, let's say, physical, like you as a body, like
right,
your body,
physical,
right?
yeah.
So you're or you have a body or whatever. So that can take only a certain amount of disruption before it starts to become damaged. So a healthy system could take a lot more disruption than an unhealthy system. So it's like more robust. More
if on any given day I'm ready to run 500 meters, that's like healthier.
Right.
As opposed to like,
all of a sudden
I try and then I'm like out of breath, and like that's not very healthy.
Yeah, like someone that could just run 5 kilometers is going to be healthier than someone that can't make it to their fridge. Right.
For anyone who's interested, something called Couch to 5K is a great little program that gets you to go from potato to runner.
Right. So these
Also,
people are building you a healthier system along this one dimension.
right. Also,
But
there's
it's a
something
really
called park
important
run, which sort of there's less park run during Corona, but a whole bunch of people in parks all around the world just volunteer to set up a track of about 5Ks, 4Ks, 5Ks, and then just time you. And you can get a weekly time for how long it takes you to run 5Ks for 5Ks. And then you can participate. So you can look up your local area and find your local park run. The one that was near me shut down for Corona. I don't know if it's opened up again. But yeah, parkrun.com, run by volunteers. Each local location does it themselves. They've got a little, they say go and you run across the start line, and then you run the 5Ks, and then as you enter the finish line, they hand you a token, and the token is your order in the race, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then there's someone there like pushing a button every time on a phone, right? Phones are amazing. Every time someone crosses the line, right? So they push the button, and then someone else hands you the token in the order that you ran in, and then you have a little barcode for your name, and they scan the barcode for your name, and then they scan the token, and then you get an email within 2 hours to say, congratulations, this is how long your run was this week. And so you can change that. You can measure your run each week, and you can get faster. It's great. It's fully run by volunteers. I loved it.
You sound so excited when you talk about it.
I really enjoyed it because it was also the little suburb that I was living in. Like 200 people participated on a Saturday morning, and then everyone went about their day and like said goodbye. But if you went weekly, you would start to recognize people. And there was the guy who would push a pram, and there was the woman and her 10-year-old son, and the like, you know, you start to recognize who you could run at the same speed as, and all of these things. And so suddenly there was a community spontaneously built out of people who feel like running, and like some
spontaneously moves into red. Yeah.
Well, some people then was setting up like midweek running practices so that you can catch up, or like the social, like then we had like a coffee shop nearby, and I'm sure many park runs do this, where we all go to the coffee shop after if you want to join. And so then you have like social community. Anyway, I like
so
park
cool.
run.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if I don't interrupt you, you'll just keep talking about it.
I think that's it. I think that's the general, like, this is park run. Definitely advocate for it.
Yeah, which makes me think that you're really into this, and I think you should just do this. Can you just sign up for it?
Well, I was running until Corona hit, and now I need to look up where they are and if I can go. It was like 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning.
So, you want to just Google it?
I can. I'm about to move house, so I'll have to.
Oh, okay. For the new place, though. Did you know where you're moving to, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah. So look up the new place, and then I'll talk to the audience while you're doing this. So
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So what happens, like for me, like I definitely have this like urge to move it to a rational space, because that's where my favorite level is. But technically speaking, you don't need to do that. He has this urge to do it, and he's excited about it, and it makes him happy, and so you can just do that. You're allowed to just do things in life that make you happy, even if you can't justify it, as long as you're like not being a dick to anyone, which I don't think which in this case obviously he's not being mean to he's not like being mean to anyone. And I think people do often, like especially people are probably listening to this, you guys probably I don't know you, but you probably do tend to overthink things. And it's 100% unnecessary.
Well, I never. How dare you? Yeah.
I think we know our audience a little bit. And like this is just short. Like there's no, for me, like I'm still feeling that missing resolution, because like how does this fit into the larger interconnected system of the universe? And like I don't know the answer to this. But
so by the way, along with parkrun, I forgot about this, but they occasionally have photographers, and they volunteer as well, and the photographer stands next to the course and just goes click 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 as everyone runs past, and then the local one was chucking him up on Facebook, and so then you have a photo of you running, which is
that's awesome.
Fun. Yeah, there's just like this whole little culture built around like free run timing little thingamajig.
Yeah, this is like very like red level doing a good job of doing the magenta level.
And they never ask for anything. They occasionally take donations, but really it doesn't cost anything to run. Anyway. I'm done. That's parkrun. It looks
Yeah,
like
running is the cheapest way to get places.
mm, I might just jump into parkrun next time
Dude, that's awesome.
next it's every Saturday morning, but I have to double check that it's running because they were shut down for Corona for a while.
Yeah, the Corona thing, I think, is just, yeah,
Well, you didn't want a bunch of
whatever.
naughty people breathing on you.
We don't need to get into that right now. But yeah, this is one of those things where like they have, I would just say like it has the impact on the, like doing things on higher levels has impact on lower levels. And so like this magenta of you being excited for running and your health, like whether or not that was actually the right move or not, is I think a different question. But it you do kind of, we're looking at this now, like usually we look at Corona from like a higher vantage point in societal, and now we're kind of being able to experience it from like a very low magenta, like I mean this is technically like a beige magenta level, red, or like I guess because you know you're excited about the people. That's cool. Like to me, that's what it is. Like you're gonna do the running for a while, and you're gonna then get a better view on health and what do you mean
Right.
by that?
So
What's going on there?
right, but I should get back to that question. Like, what is health, right? That was I'm
Yeah,
still
well, what is health?
uh I was saying that I don't really know what is health, and you gave your health as variance or capacity to
Yeah, like robustness, anti-fragility kind of thing. Yeah.
it looks like my local park run is running at the moment. Very exciting. So I will I'll see what time I wake up on Saturday morning if I go there. Good to know. Yeah, variance or capacity or resilience as a health. I guess that was there. I just didn't realize it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's what it's not as like I think there are other, we could just Google this actually.
Well, the trouble is that an exterior definition doesn't feel like a good definition to me. It just feels like someone saying stuff like you know, like I said, my high school story, they were like, there's 5 types of health. And I went, I hate high school and this is a bad model. You know, I yeah, as it is,
Yeah.
I'm like
Yeah, it's like the condition, but condition is just instant.
I'm like mildly grumpy at my high school
Dude,
education.
high school's like the worst, yeah. Like all these places are the worst.
So particularly
Education
for discouraging my interest in health. So there was a period of time when I really liked sport participation. And then as we moved to high school, the participation turned into like only encouragement for the people who were really winning the various sports. And I was not up there at the top of the winning ranked. I wasn't even ranked, you know, I was running last in the races and still participating because I was having fun in it. And I went from there to like, why would I bother? And I just like, you know, it got to me, all of the reward only for the people who are winning kind of got to me. And so I stopped really participating in sport, and I was very discouraged for several years.
So if you had a participation trophy, you'd be more likely to participate.
I think if they had like, so we had sports carnivals. I don't know if you had those there, where basically the whole school would go to do athletics or go to do running or go to do swimming carnivals. So several year groups would sort of go and kids would do the racing thing. And then we would like, it would be a whole day event of the race. But if they had like next to that had a participation sport, like, hey, we know you're not all runners. Who wants to play soccer over here? Or who wants to like do some other sporting activity? Because today's about sport.
Like a space for play.
Yeah, a space for play or something. Like,
yeah.
Then I would have been thrilled to participate. It ended up being that one of my physical activities shortly after school became circus. So learning to juggle unicycle. I played unicycle hockey for a while.
But what? That's a thing?
Yeah, it's incredible. You should watch some videos on YouTube of it. But that is the sport that I ended up enjoying. You know,
we should do one of our episodes should be like commentating on unicycle hockey.
So there is like a world unicycle hockey stuff going on. The Sydney team, my location, Sydney team, did travel to, I think, Germany at one point to compete in world unicycle hockey competitions. These people are practicing several times a week, for several hours, playing their sport game.
I bet if this was in the Olympics, it'd get more views.
Yeah. It's fun, is what it is, and it's a little unconventional, and it brings me great joy to say that I did. But that was my sport, And in high school, it took me ages until I got back into a sport.
Mm.
So right.
So to you, it's like the way I'm seeing it is that for you, like sports and moving around and stuff is fun, and that's why you're into it.
Right. Given that I'm not winning, right? I don't have but I still need exercise. Exercise seems important. That's like an aspect of health, is doing exercise seems to maintain the body and keep it fit, active. There's an essay on the backwaters of the internet. It's a little hard to find because the website got taken down, but it's on Internet Archive, called Why We Even Lift. And in that essay, he uses a metaphor of a well-oiled bicycle and this is just like a philosophical argument for why you should keep your body like a well-oiled bicycle, that anytime you can take it off the shelf and ride it. But if it's got a flat tire, if it's got like squeaky around wheels, you're not really going to enjoy using it or enjoy moving in it. And so I really like this philosophical argument he put forward, that keeping your body like a well-oiled machine is a virtuous act. And of course, a well-oiled body transcends into a well-oiled mind as well. That your mind will be able to think clearly and sharply, and you will enjoy your days because you have a well-oiled mind as well.
Yeah, I do agree with that, even though my praxis isn't that great.
Yeah. So there is that thing, and it's funny that didn't pop to mind earlier, only just now. But this idea of why we even lift was we like the keeping the well-oiled bicycle. This is me making the wheel of a bicycle, like a machine that turns easily.
Like having your tools being, like, taking care of your tools and function, and having them being functional. And there's no more important tool, I think, than your body.
Yes, particularly because it's what you use to sense into the world, what you use to think, it's what you use to
use it for everything. You have nothing else to use.
Right. Well, it's when you say you, the consciousness in my character has nothing else to use other than the squishy thing that it's sort of residing in.
Yeah. And so whenever you're going to do anything, like, it doesn't, even if you're doing it on the computer or whatever, like it doesn't matter. It's still going through your body. And even if you're going to think, even if you're only thinking, that's still your body.
Right. Being in a coma, like if you're a comatose patient, your body is not going to be well kept, or it's not going to be fit.
Yeah. And that, like that, I showed up here and I was tired and stuff. If I was in better shape, I probably would have had more energy. Now I'm excited, but
yeah, we're doing some fascinating stuff.
And I didn't notice that ramp up, to be honest.
I think the tiredness is sort of still here. It's just got other stuff going on.
Yeah, and I am having my mind starting to wander too.
We could wrap up pretty soon. So I don't think we're quite finished biodynamics. There's another level or two. This health thing is interesting. I'm gonna have to so in my mind, I'm developing a philosophy of direct knowing as well, which I think I talked about a couple of. Did I tell you about?
I think
no. Oh, I don't think I did. Oh, okay. So direct knowing is the idea that you can know reality, like you can see it, or you could somehow directly perceive it, and maybe if not directly, then you can infer reality from some experiential knowing. So if you're like, this person is,
we did talk about this. I think we talked about it on the stream too.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Going back I think about 4 or 5 episodes ago. You can know, right? And so here I am going, what is health? Going like, looking at the parts of me going, I don't know what health is, and going like, I'm lying when I say that. Like,
Yeah.
some part of me is putting up some like smoke screen of like, we'll never know what we really mean by health. We're gonna just
Yeah. And
don't look
that's why I
here,
kept asking you, what do you think it is, or what's
right?
going on with you? It's
And
because I knew
so
you knew
right,
more.
so I will need to take this offline, I think, and look at why there's a smoke screen around health. You know,
Yeah.
why I can't just know what health is, like, or what I mean when I intend to mean health. And like I said, I think I've left it at the mythic level, that health is this mythical force, just like the wind, right?
Yeah.
We don't really know what the wind is. The wind is, well, from one lens, it's like air moving, but from the full structure of what the wind is the wind all everywhere, right? Moving all around the world. There's some, if you were to be like Mother Nature moves the wind, there's like this mythic force. And it feels
Oh,
like
for
I've
a lot
done
of
that.
people, I think, yeah, wind is a very mythical force. Like it just happens randomly. And like in practically in my life, it's just random. Like I don't know when
Right.
or the wind is.
Whereas, so I've sort of done that in health, where health is this mythic force that like spins
Yeah.
like somehow orbits, and some people have it and some people don't, and you can't ever really touch it or know it. And so
Yeah.
I've tripped myself up in some way that I have conceptualized health, and so I'll have to possibly meditate on it, or spend some time with it until I'm like, oh, obviously health is ABC, which
Well, I don't think you necessarily need to know an answer to. Like I think you can reclaim. I think to me, like a big part of the transitioning of the steps is reclaiming the journey in and of itself.
Mm,
So like you're like, I'm interested in health, and like you know some things and you don't know others, and
right, I've read
owning
some
that.
books about it. I've read about dieting and fitness and
Yeah,
posture,
but
and
you don't have a like a good solid definition that you feel, or good approach or system. Like your understanding of health itself is not healthy. And
yeah. So I was looking at just the other week, posture, like feet, legs, um, footsteps. There's so many ways in which our feet adapt, and we can have a natural footstep that has a higher arch or a lower arch, or that where the center of gravity goes around the outside of the foot, or goes from the ball and then jumps to the heel. There's so many ways in which we can do that, that again, I don't know what is healthy. And I tried to read a book about it, and it was 2 books, and they were unhelpful. They sort of went, we don't really know, because
yeah,
feet are complicated.
I think that's mostly the answer to everything is we don't really know and it's complicated. But
Right, but there's still something
you
under
can
there
still do
where I
better than
can
where you
know, I
actually
can directly know, I can think about it, I can imply that there is something of a point that is
yeah,
healthy.
like there are some important things that you can know,
Right.
even if you can't know everything
Yes.
perfectly.
So I'm gonna think about that.
Psychotechnologies Live.
Like